Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank for another round of rapid fire comic book reviews, and we're getting into it with Dark Knights of Steel issue number 3 by Tom Taylor. So this issue opens up with news that there has been a star that has fallen in the Magnus realm, which is the realm of Dr. Magnus, who, created the Metal Men, and Bruce wants to investigate it primarily because, well, there's a prophecy, the prophecy that primarily led to the death of Jor-El, presumably by the Kingdom of Storms, King Jefferson, that sort of led to all this. So maybe the falling star can be the key to this prophecy. Maybe we can get a handle on what's going on here. Lara says, yeah, sure, just make sure to come back. Meanwhile, in the realm of Magnus, Zara is busy killing off the Metal Men. Why? We're not entirely sure. My guess is that the Metal Men and the realm of Magnus were lords to King Jefferson, and she's gonna full-on destabilize the region. Who knows? Meanwhile, on Amazon Island, Lois delivers the news that King Jefferson is on his way. As a matter of fact, he's like 5 minutes away via ship, and Hippolyta and Philippus are sort of like shocked. No man is allowed to step on Amazon Island, even someone like King Jefferson, who they have a long history with. So Queen Hippolyta goes to meet him, and King Jefferson, understanding that he can't step foot on the island, invites her to treat with him on the ship. They've been friends and allies for generations. Like, there's a long history between the Kingdom of Storms and Amazon Island. So they go to treat, and King Jefferson gives the news that Jacob has been killed, and Queen Hippolyta offers her condolences, but also asks, did he have King Jor-El killed? And he said, yep, I did. I couldn't wait any longer because I had to act to save our world, because King Jor-El would have been a threat. The prophecy says that he would come and he'd doom us all. Or at very least something similar would doom them all. And they believe it's King Jor-El. And he says, I've seen this power firsthand. And he said, it was Zala who murdered Jacob. And I'm thinking,
congratulations, you played yourself.
His whole plan was to stop Jor-El and his kingdom from, destroying all life. He has then decided to kill King Jor-El, and now, big surprise, his daughter's out for blood. So yeah, Diana, of course, doesn't believe this. We totally saw it, so we know. And King Jefferson's asking Hippolyta, if it comes to war with the House of El, will you stand with him? And Queen Hippolyta, knowing that, they've been friends and allies for generations, says if war proves unavoidable, we won't abandon this Kingdom of Storms. I'm like, okay. Diana's had enough. She's like, you know what, I'm going, and she's going to try to find a way to stop this war from possibly happening. Meanwhile, on the way back to the Kingdom of Storms, Jefferson and his ship are accosted by Zala, who kills King Jefferson. And with his last breath, he tells Constantine that Anissa is the new queen. Meanwhile, in the realm of Magnus, Bruce has arrived with Alfred, and they see the carnage that they don't know that Zala has unleashed on the Metal Men. And they instead find the crash site, and they find a green rock. And Bruce passes out from it. Alfred throws it away, and Bruce is like, "It didn't affect you, did it, Alfred? That means there's something I need to tell you." Alfred goes like, "Dude, I know, and there's something I need to tell you." So yeah, that was how this ended, and this is actually really cool. The ending to this is promising. And remember, issue 4 was the reason I said, you know what, we gotta talk about this book, because I think it's really cool how that story is told, and of course the twist reveal as to the identity of the Green Man, which we'll find out there. Overall, the weak part of this story is King Jefferson, because King Jefferson is taking every step needed to make the prophecy come true, and he doesn't seem to realize it. Overall, though, fun enough issue. Next up is Batman issue 120 by Joshua Williamson, and Detective Kaya has convinced everyone that she's taking the body of Abyss that she's found to LexCorp to be investigated. In reality, this is the body of Batman, who's been hiding away in the body bag. Lex, meanwhile, is getting the news that, the body's on the way here. That's great. Maybe I'll be able to figure this out and convince Bruce to finally work for me in Batman Incorporated. Because, yes, Lex is now funding Batman Incorporated. And the whole thing is interrupted by the arrival of Abyss, who Lex seems to be working with, but apparently now the relationship has deteriorated and Lex reveals his bat suit. And I'm just thinking,
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Lex, I get that in context you were going to give this to Bruce, but why are you wearing it? Why are you wearing it? You just want to be a hero, and you don't know how to make your own hero. Shame, shame, shame. Meanwhile, Bruce and the detective are sort of like, in part getting to know each other, but also trying to figure out exactly what happened to Batman's eyes. And Bruce believes that it's definitely something in his brain, but is not sure if it's like nanotech or bioinfection. It doesn't have the equipment to deal with it here. And of course, she asks like, "Hey, well, don't you want to like call your friends to help you out?" Like, "Oh, I get it. You prefer to work alone. I get that. I get that." And she reveals that one of the reasons she's with the police is that her parents just disappeared one day when she was a little girl. And that when she graduated from the academy, she went to missing persons. So he's like, now we have to get the Batman Incorporated out because we know that Abyss is alive, which means they didn't kill him. And we have to use them to help us find Abyss and figure out exactly what happened. So now there's a fancy schmancy jailbreak with a blind Batman, and he's able to get a hold of them. He's able to, buy time to have a shutdown of the prison system so they can get out. But for some reason, they don't want to leave, and he's like, okay, you guys, you didn't kill Abyss, so just, we found that out, so we can figure out what's going on here. I'm still trying to figure out why you guys work with Lex Luthor, but whatevs. He's like, is it about money? It's not about money. Lex gave them a mission, something they could pursue. And when asked about it, they go like, what do you care? We didn't need you before, we don't need you now. And it leads to a fight, and Batman's had enough. It's like, what is going on? Why would you work with Lex Luthor? And as the guards show up, they reveal like, yeah, we're not working with Lex Luthor. We're working for Abyss, because Abyss is going to help us kill Lex Luthor. I'm like, wait a minute. This just took a 180 turn. So, Lex Luthor funds Batman Incorporated to take down Abyss. It's revealed that we know that Lex was working with Abyss. But now, Abyss has gotten Batman Incorporated to fight Lex Luthor. So, yeah, it's kind of bonkers. But overall, this was a really fun, simple, straightforward issue. Some good character moments. I'm not 100% married to the idea of Batman Incorporated. Like, I need to actually reread that story again, because I just sort of like went through the motions. It didn't grasp me, but maybe I'll go back to it because I've been meaning to reread Morrison's run anyway. Next up, we have Nightwing issue 89. Now, this was a heartfelt issue. It really was. At least the first couple pages were. It's also confusing, because despite the fact that Tom Taylor's writing Nightwing, he's also writing Superman, Son of Kal-El. And for some reason, he does a better Superman in Nightwing than he does in Superman's own book. So our story opens up with a flashback a couple years ago, which was probably like maybe 1 year ago, actually, if you think about it. When John was like 12, and he accidentally went flying when his dad told him not to, and he got lost, and Nightwing and Batman find him, and Nightwing really helps him sort of cheer up afterwards. He gives him a lollipop, juggles, makes some jokes, really helps John sort of get through what he's gone through. And then we cut to the present, where John is talking to a hologram of his dad, because his dad's off fighting in Warworld. And he's really talking about the events of last issue, where Metropolis was under attack by a huge, in part a monster, and a flood, and the Gamora Force, and people died. But John saved so many people, but as Clark points out, for their line of work, for what they do, it's impossible to save everyone, but it still doesn't make it any easier to accept that. And this really isn't helping John. John, I think what John wants is to be berated. I think he wants someone to chew him out, if anything, but everyone's sort of understanding. And Kellex is like, okay, he needs some help. Well, I'm just a robot. I'll go visit Dick Grayson, and he's sleeping with Barbara Gordon, which sort of makes the events of Batgirl's issue 3 kind of confusing. Whatever. Kellex says, like, look, I think John needs someone to talk to him, and I am but a robot. I'm not even a fancy schmancy robot with an attitude. I don't even have eyes. Dick Grayson now freaks out like, oh crap, I totally told Superman that I was going to look after John, like be there for him if he needs me. I need to go do that. Meanwhile, the metahuman Risk and Teen Titan member Risk is being murdered. He's being murdered. John later meets up with his boyfriend, whose name I do not remember, despite the fact that I've read every issue of Superman Son of Kal-El. And he invites him, hey, you want to go meet the one of the main benefactors of our group, the Truth. I'm like, okay, because Truth is sort of like this underground network that wants to go around exposing corruption and whatnot. I've yet to see them do it. But whatever. John's like, yeah, sure, I'll go. I'll put on like a mask, and you put on a mask, and we'll totally have anonymity. And it turns out the benefactor, the secret benefactor, is Dick Grayson. And I'm like, this is your attempt to sort of disprove the fact that the Truth is probably a shady organization. It probably still is, but whatever. Where does Dick have this money from? He was already talking about I was going to give all of it to the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation. Already discrediting the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation. Before it can actually get started, two of the members of the Truth organization come in and say, hey, look, we've got a problem. A metahuman named Risk has been murdered, and Dick Grayson's like, oh, so I'm just going to go off now. I'll leave you guys to do this. And then he whispers to John, because he knows that that's Superman, like, hey, meet me at the crime scene. John goes, how'd you know that was me? Well, first of all, I was trained by the world's greatest detective. And I have a bunch of friends who are detectives. I'm a detective. And you didn't disguise your voice. And me and my friends, we excel at wearing masks. We know. We can spot the tells. So Nightwing reveals that Risk was actually one of the Teen Titans. Like, they never actually knew each other, but it's still a big deal. You know, one of my own has been attacked, and what's interesting about this is that Risk wasn't the only metahuman to have been killed in Metropolis. So they follow the trail. John's able to find a specific entry trail, and it leads to none other than LexCorp. And I'm thinking, why? Like, because Nightwing's already got this story with the dude going around eating hearts, and his half-sister, and the crime lords. Like, why did we need to cross over with this? Does the events of this tie into Nightwing's own book? I hope it does, for the sake of, like, the story making sense. But otherwise, we've stopped his story to tell John's story. And the benefit is at least that Tom Taylor's writing both this story and Superman Son of Kal-El. But I still don't see the point of stopping Nightwing's story to primarily tell what seems to be a Superman story. All we've really done is added the character Risk and the organization Truth, so that I think Lex should have been the one funding Truth and no one knew about it. But whatever. And finally, we have Batman the Night issue 2 by Chip Zdarsky. So if we last left off, we saw... Remember, this story is basically a new origin story for Bruce becoming Batman. Not the inciting incident, aka the death of the Waynes, but everything after the death of the Wayne family, to presumably him putting on the costume, realizing he's going to be a bat, and whatnot. And this issue is, I think, a bit better than the first one. The first one, although I liked it more because we were seeing this younger Bruce in an area that we really only saw in the Gotham TV series, but this one was a bit older. This one is a bit more interesting. Like, he's got this drive, but doesn't quite know what to do. Like, he wants to learn. Imagine Nolan's Batman. This is what this really feels like. Nolan's Batman, but have him be a little bit younger and a little bit angrier and less Christian Bale. But anyway, so the story opens up with a man finding out that his family's been murdered. Yeah. And then we see Bruce, who is trying to find... He is effectively run away from home. And he's just learning. He's trying to find out, he's trying to find great masters to learn from to help him in his pursuit of punishing criminals and stopping crime. The problem is, though, a lot of the great masters, well, they're not easy to find. They don't want to be found. Bruce already defeated the world's greatest fencer. Like 2 weeks of training, and he beat him. So now he needs something else. He needs a better education. He needs something else to learn. And then he sees a thief breaking into a house or an apartment, and he goes in like, hey, you're under arrest. And she's like, oh, look, your French is terrible. Keep working on it. And she basically just mollywobs him. What is it with DC lately and just having Catwoman, because this is basically an older Catwoman, run him through the mill? Are we just trying to explain that where Bruce's fetish comes from? Are we just trying to explain that? Anyway, she gives him the runaround, and the next day, she actually approaches him. And Bruce realizes that she is the Gray Shadow, this, big thief in Paris. And, she's like, hey, look at you. You improved your French after only one night. And you think you got me. And like, what, you think I'm under arrest? Nah. Well, you think I'm the Gray... First of all, I'm not the Gray Shadow. My name is Lucy. The Gray Shadow sounds really weird. And let's say what happens. Let's say you do arrest me. And what are the police going to do? They're going to go to my apartment and find nothing because I'm not an amateur. And what, you trying to record me? Dude, I already stole your phone. All right, first of all, you're not ready. So I tell you what, you got some spunk, and I think, going by what you're researching, you want to really find this new serial killer in Paris. I'm like, okay. Catch this guy called the Foundling. All right, you know what? You got spunk, you got potential, you got talent, you got drive, but all you're doing now is just reading books. So I'll tell you what, I'm bored, you amuse me, I'm going to teach you some stuff, all right? I'm going to teach you some stuff. You come by at 10, and I'll show you some tricks. Meanwhile, Henry Ducard, who is usually Bruce's teacher in these stories, has been asked by the French police to investigate something pro bono. The killer here, he arranges the family members by size, and he usually leaves one child alive, the youngest, and he takes mementos from where he goes, from the crime scenes, or the victims, presumably. Ducard's like, you know what? Send me the files, and I'll go take care of my actual paying work, and I'll look at it when I look at it. Meanwhile, Bruce and Lucy are undergoing their actual training, and it's actually kind of interesting when you think about it. Like, she points out, like, you move like a bull. Like, you've got the idea of stealth, but you don't quite know how to move yet. And she teaches him how to effectively be a thief. How to climb walls, how to, really run through the cities, jump on the rooftops. It's all interesting stuff. But I think what really sells it is sort of Bruce's sort of conflicted idea of this. Like, should he be learning from a criminal to stop criminals? And he's wondering what his parents would think of him. And then finally, when he gets like his actual, test run, he realizes that, really only the best people to learn from would be thieves and criminals. But of course the robbery goes wrong, Bruce gets shot, but luckily he's not mortally wounded. Lucy carries him off, and Bruce sort of reflects on something else, that the whole time that was going on, even when they were being chased down, and when he was shot, all he could think about was completing the mission. The box he didn't even care about. He's like, you know what, I have to see this through. And Lucy points out that his passion, his drive, these are like his greatest traits. And his heart will, and as he gets older, his heart will really help him, guide him through as to exactly what he'll do with that passion and drive. Bruce gets caught up in the pain and the emotions and kisses Lucy. Lucy's like, oh, look at you. Oh, that's adorable, but you're a little too young for me. So she goes off to get him some clothes. And then she's actually kind of sprung, like, ooh, Lord, like, But anyway, she then, some mysterious figure grabs Lucy, and while Bruce is thinking about exactly what he's gone through that night, he looks at the box, realizes something's a bit off, that there's a false bottom, a bunch of teeth fall out, and he's like, wait a minute, and before he can go further, we see Henry Ducard with a gun to Lucy's head saying, hey, Bruce Wayne, you two are in a world of trouble, and that's how the comic ends. So this has been an interesting issue, it really has. I didn't quite know where we were going to go after the first one. I thought we were going to spend like maybe more time at school or university, but realizing that story was over. As soon as I was like halfway through, like, yeah, that story was actually kind of over. And how seeing Bruce meet not Ducard first and meeting Lucy instead, I think is interesting. Again, we're sort of explaining where Bruce's fascination with Catwoman presumably comes from, and of course this new introduction to Ducard. what will these two characters, how will they really impact Bruce? Will Bruce still learn from Ducard at the end of this? Who knows? Overall, though, this was still a fun issue. I'm liking it. The problem is we've all kind of seen a Bruce Wayne origin. So we've seen this enough times, how Bruce became Batman, the training he went through. So it feels kind of unnecessary to tell the story again, but that's sort of the problem with DC Comics and the love of Batman. Overall, though, I'm looking forward to seeing how Bruce and Henry Ducard, as well as Lucy, sort of interact. Like, what will be this decision? Will Bruce leave Lucy to go study under Ducard? Will he study under both of them? And it's had this sort of back and forth as to exactly what Bruce's view on justice will be. Like, how comfortable will he be training under Ducard any more than he would be with Lucy? He probably won't make out with Ducard, but who knows? Anyway, with that, that brings the video close here. If you're new to the Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out some other videos, and I'll catch you all later. This is Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.